PuckHeads Insider Report, Season 1, Episode 4. My name is Ed Combs. I'm here in South Florida. My co-host, Peter South in Windsor, Ontario. He's up in Canada. We want to remind you, if you like the show, please hit like and subscribe. If you have any questions for us, please send them off to us at puckheadsinsider@gmail.com. We'll do our best to answer your questions about your favorite team and get you on our show. Again, that's puckheadsinsider@gmail.com. We have a lot to get to, Peter, today, including the NHL, parts of the ECHL going dark. We're going to have a guest on the show next week, former NHL captain in Pittsburgh and Chicago, Terry Ruskowski. We're going to hit our mailbag and a new segment called I Bet You Didn't Know. So why don't we start off with the blackout going on in an entire division in the ECHL? Peter, what do you got?
Ed, how are you doing? Glad to be here tonight and glad to have everybody listening. In the ECHL, there is a lot of news going on. Back in October, two of the teams, Atlanta team and the Norfolk team, both decided they weren't going to participate in this year because of COVID. And on Wednesday, the 18th, the whole North Division of the ECHL all decided they were going to go dark as well. So that means the Newfoundland Growlers, who are Toronto's team, Reading Royals, which are the Flyers affiliate, Brampton Beast, which are Ottawa's affiliate, Maine Mariners, the Rangers affiliate, Adirondack Thunder, who's affiliate of the Jersey Devils, and the Worcester Railers, the Islanders affiliate, are all gone dark for this year. And
is this a fan-related thing? Is this because there's no one allowed in the games?
That's part of it, yes. And also the big part has to do with the Canadian border being closed. Although the Newfoundland Growlers team, source of mine, informed me that they had full intentions. They were going to move down to Manchester, where the Manchester Monarchs used to play, and play their season out of there. Even the Adirondack Thunder, being in New York and the tightness that's gone on with all the regulations there, they were going to move down to Fort Myers, Florida, and share the rink with the Florida Everblades for the season. They all decided they're going to go dark. Now, what ECHL still has plans to start the season, well, part of the teams, the 11 teams, are going to start the season on December 11th, and the rest will start on January 15th. That is the plan right now by the ECHL, although I've heard that there is a drop-dead date of November 30th for teams if they still want to back out of this season, what the government officials and local health officials are regulating in their cities and states.
What is making it work for teams in certain cities to continue to play, but not in others? I mean, they're all, especially the ECHL, they're all relying on fans in the stands. That's how they make their money. Ticket sales, food, beverage, concessions, jerseys, all that different stuff is how they make money. They don't get big contracts from television. So why is it some can do this, but others can't?
I think it has to do with costs and support they're going to get from the parent teams in the American Hockey League and the NHL, which also brings a couple of points up that's also an issue. I heard today that the Professional Hockey Players Association, which is basically the union for the minor leagues, the American Hockey League and the ECHL, we're doing a conference call with all the players today to discuss the issues, because with all those teams going dark, those 8 teams going dark, and the potential for at least possibly one more, 2 more going dark, all those players were deemed free agents. And the PHPA is looking in the situations where a player could have already signed in good faith with the team and then find out even before the puck's been dropped that he has been bumped and released because of a player that's been available from one of the teams that went dark has signed on as a free agent. They're trying to figure out some way to offer protection to the players. And I know they're also having discussions with the American Hockey League. As we know, the American Hockey League is a feeder to the NHL. When players get pulled up from the American Hockey League to the NHL, they reach down to the ECHL to pull players up. And so to not leave the ECHL strapped, what another thing I'm hearing is they're looking at possibly increasing the roster size in the ECHL by at least 3, maybe 4 players, and not having those players count against the salary cap, just so that the teams have bodies, so that when players are called up, they still have enough bodies to field the team.
Well, the American Hockey League may also have to be pulling players from the ECHL, considering you may have a number of players still in Europe who either can't get to Canada, who cannot get back to the United States, or are fearing they're not going to have any games to keep playing, so they're just better off staying over there.
Exactly. I mean, it's the great unknown that we're all dealing with on a day-by-day basis, and it's got to be tough on the executives in the NHL and the American Hockey League, the ECHL, to try to get a grasp on what's going on. The difference, too, is a lot of these ECHL owners, a lot of them have other businesses in that, but there are quite a few of them. Their hockey business is their main source of income. That is their business. They might also have a baseball team in that town or some other sport, and the revenue they generate is their income. And
yeah, that's you got to figure they're going to lose advertising dollars just from the boards or the outfield or wherever they sell advertising everywhere in ECHL rinks and minor league ballparks. That's a big source of revenue that's now going to dry up because there's nobody there to see it.
Yep. And it's going to get tougher, too, because as we're seeing, there's spikes in COVID in numerous states and cities. The experts are saying the models for after Thanksgiving could increase those spikes even more. I guess one of the topics in the PHPA talks with the players today was actually pushing the season out until February 1st, which would coincide with the American Hockey League not planning to start until the 5th of February as it is. So that would put them more in line there. Now they'd be looking at a shorter season. They're trying to get in 72 games for the teams that are starting in mid-December and 62 games for the teams that are starting in January. It is going to be interesting to watch and see, and like I said, everybody's traveling in uncharted waters right now. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. And you just hope it works out best for most of the people involved. I think there unfortunately are going to be some casualties as far as players who may have signed somewhere and get bumped and can't play this year. But hopefully this all sorts itself out.
For those who may not follow the ECHL or any of the minor or junior leagues, the NHL fan may know NHLPA is National Hockey League Players Association. For those who don't know, fill us in on what PHPA is, please.
The PHPA is the Professional Hockey Players Association. They are the union that represents all the players in the American Hockey League and the East Coast Hockey League, or the ECHL. They don't go by East Coast Hockey League anymore. And their job is to make sure the players get a fair shake, that everything's on the up and up, that there's no backdoor dealings like used to be common in the minor leagues, say 20, 25 years ago. They want to make sure it's a level playing ground for all players, and all players are treated fairly.
Anything else we need to touch on as far as the teams that have gone dark or something new going on in the ECHL?
Well, like I say, other than that call today with the players and the PHPA, there's nothing right now, although I do believe personally, I think the start date of December 11th is highly optimistic. I don't see it happening, and I really do see the league as a whole being pushed back to early February as when they will start.
Any word on if the NHL still has a target date of January 1?
The NHL is a whole other ball of wax we're dealing with. Yes, the NHL, according to Gary Bettman in his last releases, have said they still want to target January 1st as the date they go. But I think realistically, from a couple of my sources, they're also going to be looking at the beginning of February. Divisional realignment, which is probably going to be a factor with the Canadian borders still being closed, is something that has to be taken into consideration. Also for players who are, American players, European players who are going to play for those Canadian teams, they got to get into their host cities at least 2 weeks beforehand so they can quarantine by law in Canada. So that's another factor they have to deal. I know there's been rumors of talking of like mini bubbles or just playing in host cities and playing much like a baseball series where you'd go to a city and in the course of 5 days you would play 3 games and then you're gone and move on to the next city or back to your own city.
I'm also hearing that January 15th is a start date, not just the 1st of February. The outdoor game, always on January 1, has been canceled. The All-Star game has been canceled. And if they're wanting to finish an NHL season by July so they can start the next season on time so that teams like Seattle can get in there, get the draft, get their players, get ready to rock and roll. Do you still think it could be as far back as February 1?
I definitely think it could be February 1. Although, like I said, the NHL's line right now is they're shooting for January 1. You're right. It's important, I think, for the NHL to finish the season by July with the Olympics scheduled to go off this summer. NBC's contract is up after this season. So there's a lot of stuff that says the NHL needs to get this season in and completed by July. So it could mean as low as a 48-game season or upwards of a 65-game season. But as you mentioned, the cancellation of the outdoor game, one of the pieces of scuttlebutt I did hear is the NHL would still like to, when the games do start, is kick it off with a bang. One of the things they talked about was having an outdoor game in Banff National Park on an outdoor rink, but apparently that's kind of been put on hold because it's a national park and too many hoops to jump through to have advertising and all that kind of stuff. But I can still see the NHL trying to kick things off with a bang with something like that to try to catch everybody's attention right away.
I hope they can just get the season started, not worry about jumping through hoops or trying to make things happen with an outdoor game, especially this year. Today, we're diving into the NHL's Pittsburgh Penguins and their affiliates in the AHL and ECHL. Let's first take a question from our mailbag, as Jeff here in South Florida, by way of Pittsburgh, wants to know, when do we see the Pens making another serious run for the Cup again, and what we see happening with them in the next 5 seasons? Peter, do you see them still competing, not just for the playoffs in this year and next year, but beyond in the next 5 seasons? Do they have another 1, maybe 2 cups in them?
Well, Ed, I think, and thank you for the question from our mailbag. I think it's important we look back first to the end of this Penguin season last year. And the easiest way to sum it up would be call it was a bust. The fact that they got knocked out by Montreal in 4 games in a 5-game series was not something they expected or counted on from their, at their management and coaching or even player level. From that team that finished the season against Montreal, 6 of those players are gone. And that includes goaltender Matt Murray, who I think they lost total confidence in as an organization in Game 3 when the Penguins were up 3-1, 6 minutes into the second period. He gave up a couple goals the rest of the way in that period and the game winner in the third period. That prompted the coach, Mike Sullivan, to change and put in Tristan Jarry for Game 4, who played great, even though they lost 2-0. The second goal was an empty net goal. But I think it showed that he's the goalie of the future, and I think that's why Matt Murray was sent packing to Ottawa. They also bought out Jack Johnson, and they have some of his salary still on the cap, even though he's now signed as a free agent in Pittsburgh. Justin Schultz is gone. Patrick Marleau is gone. Connor Sheary's gone. And the one I know, Patrick Hornquist, has been dealt as well. He was traded to Florida in a 2-for-1 deal there. And
Jack Johnson, I get. Patrick Marleau, I get. Holmquist, I don't get. He was a star in Nashville. He was doing quite well for Pittsburgh. He wasn't afraid to throw his weight around. The coming out of Brian Rust, is that one of the reasons he was 86 to Florida for the 2-for-1 deal we were talking about?
Part of the reason, I think the other part is that they picked up Kasperi Kapanen from the Leafs right before the draft, and he's one heck of a player, and he's got a hard nose to the net. He skates like the wind, and he can finish, and he's a little bit younger. They also have Evan Rodriguez, who's another right wing, and also a hard-nosed player, and he will do the same thing. The funny thing is Rodriguez, the Penguins definitely showed they like him a lot because they acquired him earlier in the year in a trade with Buffalo. And then they dealt him to Toronto in the Kapanen trade, and then a month after re-signed him as a free agent. So they definitely seem to like Rodriguez. And with Patrick Hornquist gone, they picked up a much needed top 3 defenseman in Mike Matheson, and also a great fourth line guy who can be also playing the fourth line, and Colton Sevier, who gives them a lot of depth down the middle of the ice.
A fourth line guy. Do you see Matheson as a top 2 or a top 4 defenseman?
Definitely a top 3 guy, and I think that's something Pittsburgh needed. They needed to upgrade Letang. We just never know how long he's going to last. Matheson can log big minutes and play the game good. And they also picked up as a free agent from Toronto, Cody Ceci. So he could step right in there and become the second pairing along with Matheson for the Penguins, which is a big upgrade for them.
Are they taking an overripe position with players that they have in the American Hockey League? For example, you've got Riley Barber and Kevin Waugh. They're top point getters. They got to be getting close to ready to step into Pittsburgh. Are they leaving them down there? Do they want to see what they got? Are they going for that, put the future on hold and do it now because of, Sidney Crosby and Malkin are not getting any younger, of course. So are they trying to keep it, getting them a cup as much as they can before their days are numbered?
Well, Crosby and Malkin definitely have at least 5 years in each of them left. Now, whether they stay together, Malkin's contract's up first, remains to be seen. Penguins do have some good, a few good young players in the system. And as we know, GM Jimmy Rutherford has no inhibitions at all about pulling the trigger on a trade. And one of the players we haven't talked about who could also make a huge impact for the Penguins, will probably start the season in the minors, is Jonathan Gruden. He was a second-round draft pick in Ottawa, and they picked him up in the Matt Murray deal. He'll probably start the season down there, but I wouldn't expect him to be staying there too long. He's very cap friendly, being a rookie. He would complement with his speed and his aggressiveness. And again, he has a nose for the net. Something, as I said to you off air before, that hurt the Penguins in their series with the Canadians. They weren't getting those second chance opportunities. They weren't going hard to the net. And players like Kapanen, Rodriguez, and Gruden will give them that, and Brian Rust, as he continues to develop, are going to give them that element that they haven't had before.
Brian Rust, comes out of nowhere, scoring 55 goals in over 250 games. You saw him in Ann Arbor at the National Development Team. He's a Michigan kid. Did anyone know he could break out like this? 27 goals, 55 games, jumping his points per game or goals per game from .22 to .49. Is that something that's going to help them progress to keep these guys where they have them, whether it's in Wheeling with the Nailers, whether it's in Scranton Wilkes-Barre? Before they got to start moving guys around down there, is the players that have been brought in from trade, whether it's a forward or a defenseman, that you got guys like Brian Rust stepping up?
Well, I definitely think Rust excelled. When you play on the top two lines, you're playing with either Crosby or Malkin. And I know at times he played quite a bit last year with Malkin, and he's got Jason Zucker on the left side. So they make a formidable line. And then when you look at the other line that could have Crosby in the middle with Kapanen and Gunsel, you've got a 1-2 hit there that a lot of teams are going to have trouble defending. There's no doubt about that. Brian Rust, like I said, he's fortunate the fact that both those top centers are left-hand shooters, and him being a right winger, it's a natural thing on the forehand to pass to the right-hand guy, and he's just been developing the confidence to shoot the puck, and he goes to the net. He gets those dirty, greasy goals, and he's putting the numbers up. Like I'm sure he felt he always could, probably felt he never had that opportunity to do it.
Close out on that. Do you think that was a one-shot thing, or is he capable of doing that season in, season out?
Oh, I think he's definitely has the opportunity. And I think last year's trade, moving Phil Kessel to Arizona, opened up the door for him. And I think that's why now with Hornquist gone, I think you'll see he's going to get a lot more first-line power play minutes, and he'll definitely start putting some numbers up.
I know you and I have discussed before, we are not one to be in the rumor mill, and you have more connections than I do into the NHL. So I'm just going to ask this, and then we're going to just move on. It's pretty much a yes or no question. Every season, it seems we are hearing either on the NHL Network, on News Talk, our sports talk radio shows, problems between Sidney Crosby and Malkin. Tell me, is a lot of this smoke? Is there fire where there's smoke? Is there any truth to any of this? Has anyone been asking to be traded?
No, definitely haven't heard anybody asking to be traded. And in the climate of the NHL right now, when you look at those guys' salaries that are both far in excess of $8 million a year, making a trade is really, really tough. But I think they're like a good marriage. They get along great when they're together, but they do need their time apart. And I think, when Malkin goes back home to Russia in the summers, that gives them time apart. They're both competitors. They both want to be on the first power play. They both want the puck. And, like the old saying that we've heard is when you have a team full of superstars, there's only one puck on the ice and only one player can hold it at a time.
Scotty Bowman's famous for that.
Yeah, but I also think now, both of them are in their early 30s. I think they're focused on more cups. I think that's what they really want. They want to cement their legacies. I think they definitely want more cups. And I think, like I said, Jim Rutherford surrounding them with players like Kapanen and Rust and Gunsel and Zucker. He's doing a great job upgrading the back end and giving Tristan Jarry the shot at the number one spot between the pipes. I think the Penguins are definitely going to be there at the end this year.
Thank you very much, Peter. And thank you, Jeff, for sending in your question to us. Remember, if you've got a question about your favorite team, it is puckheadsinsiders@gmail.com. Let us know your favorite team, what your question is. We'll do our best to get each and every one of them on the air. Moving on, we're going to talk some NCAA Big Ten hockey. You bring one specific team, the University of Michigan, and I'm understanding we got some superstars potentially on this team that in years to come, we can be saying 4 or 5 of these guys are stars in the NHL, and they all came from the University of Michigan.
Well, Ed, as we know, there's not a whole lot of hockey to watch right now, so I'm going to do a little pump job for the Big Ten. And if you're a real hockey fan and you have access to get the Big Ten Network or the Big Ten Plus Network, get it. It's worth it. Watch the University of Michigan. On their roster right now, they have 7 players who already have been drafted by NHL teams. They also have 3 players, 3 freshmen that have come in, and they are ranked, all 3 of them, in the top 10 for next year's NHL entry draft. And on top of that, the man between the pipes, Strauss-Mann, hasn't been drafted, but there is no doubt in my mind as soon as his career, now he's only a junior this year, as soon as his collegiate career is over, there are going to be numerous NHL teams knocking on his door.
Can he still get you drafted?
He's too old to be drafted now, but he will definitely sign on as a free agent.
Free agent.
Yep. And I'll tell you, this is a team where people are going to look back 5-7 years from now and say, wow, look at all the NHL stars who were on that team back in Michigan. Full marks go out to the coaching staff, Mel Pearson and his and the other guys who went out and did all the recruiting for this, because they have a phenomenal amount of players there. And these are young guys. We're not talking about a bunch of seniors of that. I mean, we're talking freshmen, sophomores, juniors. I mean, the other night, Thomas Bordeleau, who is a freshman, was a draft pick for the San Jose Sharks, scored a beautiful overtime goal. I mean, and Pearson's using these guys, all these young freshmen, in situations you don't normally see freshmen, penalty killing, power play, 3-on-3 in the overtimes, stuff like that. So they're a fun team to watch, though. They skate like the wind, they move the puck, and they're extremely talented. Let's hope that everything stays good in the NCAA and COVID doesn't hurt their schedule or their ability to keep playing.
Before we get into our next segment, we have a new portion to our show called I Bet You Didn't Know. Today's trivia question, we're going to see if you can test your knowledge. Today's trivia question is, how many women's names are on the Stanley Cup? Is it 5, 10, 15, or none of the above? Again, how many women have their name on the Stanley Cup? Is it 5, 10, 15, or none of the above? Moving on to our next segment, Peter, I want to talk about some free agents we have talked about before. We have Mike Hoffman, Sammy Vatanen, 2 I can't believe do not have contracts. The biggest one to me is Anthony Duclair. The guy's been on 5-6 teams. He does nothing but score goals. He's got speed. He's got talent to spare, and yet he can't stay in one place longer than a season. Is there any new information on this player? Or what about Mike Hoffman, Sammy Vatanen? Do you see these guys getting contracts as we get closer to playing in the NHL, and teams and general managers are more apt to see how much cap space they have? Do they need this type of player to boost their team to that next spot? I'm dying to find out what's going on with Anthony Duclair, because this kid is a superstar talent, in my opinion.
I think there's deficits in all the guys you mentioned. But I think at the moment there's an unofficial moratorium on signing these free agents right now. And that has to do with the status of the NHL. In the last CBA that was signed before the bubble playoffs, the NHL agreed, I think it was, that there would be no prorated salaries. And that's one of the things that's up for discussion right now, since the league is going to definitely be playing much less in an 82-game schedule. So I think what a lot of the general managers and owners are waiting for before they go after these guys is to see, okay, what are we going to have for a schedule, and are we going to have prorated salaries? And because you know, if you're playing 48 games, you don't want to be paying an Anthony Duclair $5 million a year for 48 games. You know, if it's a $5 million contract and it's prorated down to that 48 games, definitely you want to do it. To
me, this is like in real estate, you've got a buyer's market and a seller's market. To me, this is prime for a general manager. You got a shortened season. You want to play, or do you want to sit out the season? I'll get you a 1-year contract. Let's see what you got. Let's see how you fit with my team. This is what I'm willing to pay you for this short of a season. Prove yourself. You think you can make this team and you can be a part of my locker room, make my team better? We'll talk at the end of the season about an extended long-term contract.
And that's true, but you get a guy like Mike Hoffman, who's a little older. He wants more security. He's looking for a long-term deal. And right now, we don't know what the cap's going to be like going forward. A lot of talk of it being a flat cap for a couple of years. This $81.5 million, especially again if there's not a lot of butts in the seats in these stadiums, there's no revenue being derived. And
I get that, but does Anthony Duclair, is he willing to sit out a season not to get a long-term contract?
I think he would be willing to take a shorter contract. And again, you know, you look at the length of the season. If it's a 48-game season under the current scenario and of COVID and all that, you may get a guy who says, yeah, maybe I will just sit out for a year and, you know, see what happens. And I mean, these guys haven't gone to Europe or anything like that to play or anything. So they are just sitting and training on their own. But it'll be interesting to see how it all, you know, unfolds over the next few weeks.
Majority of the players I have spoke to, that's one thing they can't stand doing, is sitting out a season. Regardless of if it's a lockout, whether it's a strike or something like COVID, they still want to play.
Oh, absolutely. That's the reason why Joe Thornton's over in Finland right now. Even though he signed a contract in Toronto, he's over in Finland playing because he loves to play, and he knows that's going to just help the longevity of his career to keep on the ice.
Now, before we jump into the next segment I want to talk to you about especially is we got to give an answer. Question was, how many women have their names on the Stanley Cup? Is it A, 5? Is it B, 10? Is it C, 15? Is it D? None of the above. Peter, do you have an answer?
I'm going to go out and say it's C, 15. I also will say that number, whatever your answer is, will increase over the next few years with the number of women who are getting roles, not just in the front office, but it's starting to get more roles within the hockey operations portions of every team.
When that starts happening more and more, which it's looking like it could, yes, it'll increase tenfold, because the majority of the names by women that are on the cup right now are through ownership. You know, so their spouses or the owners themselves. So that's whose names are on there currently. I'm unaware, unless you know, is there management or office personnel with names on there?
There could be. I'm not 100% sure. Okay. But sorry, Ed, I missed what the answer was.
15. It is C, 15. You are 100% correct, my friend. Now, we've talked about the 3 of the free agents. Please understand, we know there's a whole lot of them. These are 3 we had time to discuss. One player who I really like watching, I'm not sure if he's staying, if he's going, or what his plans are. You and I have talked about this. You think he's going to stay there. You think he's comfortable there. Very well could be the answer. Dougie Hamilton, he is an RFA. After next season, his contract is up. Is he staying in Carolina? Do you see him seeing how much money he can make elsewhere? There was a time There was a few other teams, including the Detroit Red Wings, who tried like crazy to get him. Never happened. Is that still out? Does he want to stay in Carolina?
I think he's going to stay in Carolina. I think the ownership, the management, the coaches are all going to make big pitches to keep Doug Hamilton in Carolina. They look at him as a cornerstone piece for that organization. He can do so much, long as he stays healthy, but he can do so much. His offensive game has increased tremendously. And, the size of him, his wingspan, he does so much good stuff in his own end that he makes it hard for other teams to just get to the net, let alone put pucks there.
All right, Peter. Before we get it wrapped up, we've got a couple of other things we want to touch on regarding Pittsburgh and Florida, one of which is recent retiree Trevor Daley, and some really big news coming out of Florida with Brett Peterson. Fill us in on what you got going there.
Well, Trevor Daley officially retired. Finished his career with the Red Wings. He won 2 Stanley Cups with the Pittsburgh Penguins in the 2016 and one in 2017, and played 16 seasons in the NHL. He is going to be the hockey ops advisor for the Penguins. He'll be based out of Pittsburgh and report directly to Jim Rutherford. He'll be assisting in player evaluations at the NHL and AHL level, as well as acting as an eye in the sky for the coaching staff during games. So he's going to be, right on the pulse of the team every single day.
And going on in Florida, Brett Peterson, this is absolutely huge. It is awesome news for the hockey community altogether. Fill us in on what's going on with Brett Peterson and why this is such a great story.
Brett Peterson has been named the assistant general manager to the Florida Panthers. It is believed that Peterson is the first Black assistant general manager in the National Hockey League. He brings a wealth of experience with him as a player and in management. He's been a certified agent since 2009 and was vice president of the Wasserman Media Group during that time. I have actually personally known Brett Peterson for a number of years now. He briefly played for me. I'm pleased to say I've known Brett Peterson for a number of years. He is much more than being a man of color. He is a man of hockey and a man of integrity. I think he'll be a fantastic addition to the front office of the Panthers, and I do see an NHL general manager's job in his future.
That is absolutely awesome. Congratulations to him. I hope everything works out well for him in Florida, and he is able to assist in getting that team to the next level. Don't forget, next week's special guest, Terry Ruskowski, is going to be joining us. He's going to be a big part of our show next week with lots of questions. So if you have any questions for Terry, send them off to us, PuckHeadsInsider@gmail.com. We hope you enjoyed the show. This is Season 1, Episode 4. Please remember, subscribe, like, pass the word about our show. For Peter South in Windsor, Ontario, my name is Ed Combs here in South Florida. We look forward to speaking to you all about hockey next week.